Good morning, Boston. Okay, my friends, the next frontier of radical leftism or liberalism is now here. So here is now the absolute latest. Get ready for this, because this is what we're going to be debating for the next 18 months. Joe Biden, according now to the New York Post, met privately with the DARE leader, Barack Hussein Obama. They had a private meeting at the White House. Obama now, speaking on behalf of the power brokers within the Democratic Party, are now deeply, deeply concerned about Biden's crumbling poll numbers. They say the economy, inflation, crime, the border, the overall perception of Biden with his cognitive, mental, clear physical decline. They believe, as Obama told him, quote unquote, Joe, it's time to hang it up. In other words, you gotta go. For the good of the party, the good of the country, you have to go, because now you're starting to kill us politically. Biden refuses to go. In fact, Jill Biden is determined that Joe Biden win another election, and to serve out, I'm not kidding, all the way until he is 86 years old. In fact, yesterday, the White House had to admit that Joe Biden has been on a CPAP machine. Reporters, they couldn't hide it anymore, noticed strap marks all along his face, saying the president's face keeps looking weirder and weirder and weirder. What the hell is going on? The White House now claims that Joe Biden suffers from sleep apnea, which is something many Americans have, and that he's on a CPAP, essentially an oxygen machine, all night to try to pump in enough oxygen because the back of his throat keeps closing when he's sleeping. Now, to be honest with you, I don't believe that's true. I mean, he may have sleep apnea, I don't know. But I think they've been caught pumping oxygen into him for the sake of pumping oxygen into him, because they got to keep this guy afloat. So it's drugs, it's oxygen, whatever it is, to keep this guy propped up, moving, functioning at any kind of a relatively semi-normal pace and speed. So it's obvious now, physically, Biden is starting to crumble, and disintegrate, not just mentally, cognitively, and psychologically. So Biden now, desperate to cling to power, he and Lady Macbeth, or in this case, Lady Dr. Jill, do not want to relinquish power. They are determined to hang on, get the Democratic nomination, fend off Robert Kennedy Jr., and then run for re-election, and in their view, hang on for another 4 years after that. Biden now, in conversations with Obama, said, if I run again against your advice, everyone else's advice, what is the issue that I need now to embrace? What's the silver bullet? What can get my numbers up? What can get turnout up? What can help me get over the hump in November 2024? Obama's response, you've got to win back the black vote. The key to Obama was that the black vote went for Obama in historic numbers. He had a lot of white supporters as well. There's no question. 43% of all American whites voted for Obama. But it was the astronomical turnout among blacks that put him over the top in 2008 and put him over the top again in 2012. So the decision now has been made that the Democratic Party, to try to desperately get blacks to vote for Biden in much bigger numbers, are now going to push reparations for slavery on a much bigger national scale. It's not just going to be in Denver. It's not just going to be in San Francisco. It's not just going to be in California statewide. They want the California model. Now they want to do that for the entire country. And so Biden has now come out and said they are, quote unquote, studying the issue of reparations, which is what Gavin Newsom said, which is what San Francisco said, until they embraced it. So Obama now is pushing the issue of reparations in order to gin up and generate a lot more support and enthusiasm for Biden and the Democrats, so they will vote like there's no tomorrow in 2024. He has now said that reparations is an idea whose time has come. And San Francisco and California are leading the way. Now, this is Obama in February 2021. So this is what, over 2 years ago. Even then, he was in favor of reparations. So he was asked, but if you believe in reparations, why didn't you try to push it or pass legislation when you were president? Listen to the dear leader's response. Roll cut 1, Mike.
Are reparations justified? The answer is yes. The politics of white resistance and resentment made the prospect of actually proposing any kind of coherent, meaningful reparations program not only a non-starter, but potentially counterproductive.
So that was an interview, I believe, with The Hill. Don't quote me on that last part, but in some kind of a podcast or whatever. That's why you hear a little bit of the music in the background. But reparations are justified. He wanted to do it, or he was thinking of doing it. But the politics of white resistance, white resentment, it just couldn't be done during his term. He just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Now he says things have changed. Black Lives Matter is now demanding reparations. Obama now says it is time for reparations. And Obama's only fear now is that if you have a reparations program, not just California, for the entire country, a national reparations program in which they're looking at $3 to $5, maybe $7 million for any individual who can claim that they were a descendant of a slave or that they were impacted by the legacy of slavery. Notice, by the way, how incredibly vague all of this is. Okay? But let that go. So, whites, Asians, Latinos, blacks who are non-African American. So let's say you come from the Caribbean, or I'm not kidding, you really come from Africa. I don't mean, 10 generations ago. So let's say you immigrated from Nigeria, or, take your pick. We're all on the hook. We're all going to have to pay $3 to $5 to $7 million. Let's go low. $3 million. But Obama says the problem he has with reparations, he still supports it. Don't get me wrong. But his fear is once you have reparations, then the country is going to conclude that we can end affirmative action. We can end racial quotas. We can end, as he puts it, job training programs and rehabilitating prisoners who come out of jail. In other words, all of the race-based programs that liberals have imposed on our country in education, applying for university, in the boardroom, in corporations, in business, i.e. quotas, racial quotas, affirmative action, admission quotas, that will then be disbanded. And he says, no. We're going to do reparations, but they have to stay. All of it has to stay. And you also do reparations. Now, they believe that this is like you're basically now waving a lottery ticket in front of the eyes of many African Americans. You want to be a millionaire? You want to be a multimillionaire? All you got to do is vote for Joey and Kamala. Now, come on, get your reparations today. My friends, the Democrats, as I predicted, cannot resist supporting reparations. The Congressional Black Caucus is already on board. Many leading liberal Democrats are now saying it's an idea whose time has come. Obama is now pushing it. Biden will probably formally embrace it within the next couple of months and make it a central plank of his entire platform and re-election campaign. My question to you, should all of us pay for reparations? And will this help or doom the Democrats in the November general election? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the Democrats, and in many ways now the Obamas, make their move. So there was a very tense, very emotional meeting between Obama and Biden. This is what the New York Post is reporting. Private meeting in which Obama told Biden, it's time to hang it up. You don't have the juice anymore. You're clearly in physical, mental decline. More ominously, his poll numbers are a disaster. I could play you the cut. I don't want to bother. Even Chuck Todd from MS Left BC, NBC, came out and said the economic poll numbers are now disastrous for Biden, that there will be a Republican in the White House if we continue to go down this path. So the media now senses doom and disaster. The party senses doom and disaster. They see Trump rising. And so now, in desperation, Obama says you've got to get the black vote electrified the way I did if you're going to have any chance to pull off another election win in 2024. If Biden doesn't want to step aside, as he's now being pressured to do, he must embrace reparations. Obama now is all in. He is now saying the Democratic Party must make reparations for slavery their issue in 2024. This will drive black turnout, in particular African American turnout, through the roof. Listen now to this text, because I believe that there's something to it. You can text us 70470. Jeff, this is all about Marxist Muchel stepping into the race. Interesting. The reparations issue is a tactic to divide us, but the big prize is Barry and Big Mike, Michelle Obama, back in the White House. This is from 508. Jeff, we've had more than enough reparations, beginning with the Great Society and welfare in 1965. Trillions of dollars. And what have we gotten for it? Nothing. My friends, I think the texters in many ways are right. They may be setting a trap now for Biden. If the guy is so stubborn, and Dr. Jill Biden is telling him, you're going to hang on, you're going to get your second term, we're going to be in the White House until you're 86, we'll put more more CPAP machines on you, we'll pump you up with even more drugs, we'll do what we got to do, Joe, but we're going to ride this thing out all the way to 2028. I think the Obamas now are going to use reparations as the issue for Michelle Obama to declare her candidacy out of the blue and challenge Biden. We shall see, but it's now obvious that if they play the race card, nobody can play it better than the Obamas, and reparations is critical race theory. This is critical race theory, but on a national level. This is, and Black Lives Matter now, all in on reparations. They are putting massive pressure on every major Democrat now to adopt and support reparations for slavery. The only disagreement is how the reparations will take place. In other words, what form? Is it a lump sum payment of $3 million or $5 million? Is it monthly payments over, say, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years of $5 million? So I don't know, $100,000 a month or whatever it is. There are others now who are saying, no, you don't give us a lottery jackpot of $3 or $5 or $7 million, but free health care, guaranteed job, free apartment, free housing. This is a form of reparations without an actual check deposited in one's bank account. So their argument now is what form of reparations? But now clearly the Democrats are embracing reparations as a national issue, and they may even want to run on it in 2024. Mike, how much time left? Okay, listen now. This is NBC interview with a black woman in California. As you know, they're pushing reparations in California. There is a task force, and they will give out their final recommendations, why they deserve it, and what form should it take. Roll cut 2, Mike.
Why do you deserve reparations?
There's generational wealth that was stolen from us. We had to continue to rebuild every time. We would be further along if you hadn't done what was done to our family.
How much generational wealth do you think has been lost?
When you say how much, what do you mean? A dollar figure? It's priceless. I'm a homeowner. I shouldn't have to pay property taxes. I should have free medical insurance. I should be able to go to the school that I want to go to without having to pay.
So, free education, free health care, don't pay taxes. In other words, what this woman is saying is, you don't have to give me $3 million, but you've got to give me free benefits and no taxes for the rest of my life, and I assume that of her children. I assume. Now, when all this ends, I don't know. No one's looking at how much this is going to cost. We are talking tens and tens of trillions of dollars. And is it fair? Is it fair? Should we have to pay trillions of dollars from, people who never owned slaves to people who never were slaves? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends. It's the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Kelly Financial Services. Is there any form of reparations that you would find acceptable? I'm just curious. We played the cut of one of these activists, recently interviewed by NBC, saying, no, I don't need a $3 million or $5 million check. It doesn't have to be a cash payment. But, hey, no property taxes, free tuition, medical insurance, free health care, whatever. In other words, other forms of reparation by giving us free stuff and free benefits. So are there any forms of reparations that you would find acceptable or that you could support? Yes or no? I want to hear from you. You know me. The answer is no. I think this is poison. I think this will tear our country apart. And ironically, I think it will destroy the Democratic Party. You want to guarantee Trump's election or re-election in 2024. This is the issue. It may work with some in the African American community. It may drive up turnout for some, but it will alienate everybody else. Kiss away the Latino vote, the white vote is gone. The Asian vote gone. Latino vote gone. The Indian American vote gone. The black vote, non-African American. The Haitians, those from the Caribbean, from Nigeria, from African country, gone. I mean, so this will reduce the Democrats to nothing. So, but hey, I'm not. If you want to commit a suicide, you want to go on a political kamikaze, go ahead, be my guest. But that's me. The answer is no. But I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in Nancy ER. You can also vote via Twitter. Our handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhner. Lines are loaded. Rob in Wyoming. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. So now I'm on the other side of Yellowstone. You know what, Jeff? Damn it. I am disgusted by this. I am frequently encountering Native Americans who have character enough to not even consider something like reparations. They know they've been vanquished. They know they've been screwed over. But let me ask you, where is the character of the African Americans who are looking for reparation? And where's the character of those who don't have a microphone in front of them yet to speak negatively against this reparation garbage? Jeff, people here, I'm in the Shoshone National Forest. You know how many Shoshones I have met? None. They're all dead. You know, I'm transnational now. I am Shoshone. There aren't any. African Americans were brought here when they were sold by their chiefs in Africa. If there's anybody deserving of reparations, it's the Native Americans of North America.
Well, you know, Rob, you make some superb points. I mean, really superb points. And look, if these reparations activists, and they're really Black Lives Matter activists, this is all BLM. This is all Black Lives Matter. And Obama's their leader. There's no question. If these BLM activists, if Obama feels so strongly about reparations, then sue the countries in Africa. Because they were the ones who rounded them up. It was their chiefs who rounded them up and sold them. I mean, I'm just calling it the way it is. Now, I've made this point a zillion times, so I don't want to keep repeating it. Slavery was in every culture, every civilization. By the way, even among many Native American tribes. I'm not trying to disparage them. I have a lot of sympathy for what they endured, but I'm just pointing out an actual fact. So if we start saying, well, I want reparations for slavery, everybody's suing everybody. No, really, it's just we're just suing each other. That's all we're going to be doing. This is one of the most ridiculous arguments I've ever heard in my life. And, and you mentioned the maltreatment, really, of these poor Native Americans, and you're right. But, what about the Chinese? No, really, the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. You don't think the Chinese want to get in on this now? What about the Armenians? 2 million minimum dead under the Turks. The Jews, 6 million under Hitler. And many of them, when they tried to flee to North America, were denied. So what? They're going to demand reparations? How about the Irish? Irish need not apply. By the way, some Irish were brought to this continent literally in chains. They were slaves. What about Italian Americans and the discrimination that they endured? And by the way, people don't know this, Rob. The biggest lynching in the United States of America occurred in New Orleans in 1891 against Sicilians. Italian Americans, most of them Sicilians, the biggest lynching because they were considered I'm going now by historian Stephen Berg, as he put it, quote, white Negroes. Okay, quote, that's in quote unquote, that's what they were referred to as white Negroes. So my point is what? They're going to start what? So how about Japanese Americans under World War II? They were literally put in internment camps. So you start opening up this Pandora's box. Everybody is suing everybody. We don't have a country left. We don't. So in their desire to buy votes, and this is what many of you are pointing out, this is illegal. I would argue it's not just immoral, and I think grotesque. This is illegal. They're buying votes under the guise of reparations. This is literally, here's $1 million. Rob, here's $1 million, vote for me. You, here's $1 million, vote for me. That's what they're doing. They're buying votes. Or they're thinking they're buying votes. I mean, Rob, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. But let me end it with this summation that I'll say you people, all those that you mentioned, looking for reparation, you people lack character. You lack the character this nation requires as a fundamental trait.
I think, you know what, you're right. But believe it or not, usually I add, I say, yeah, you're right, but I would say this. In this case, one of the few times, Rob, I would just say your first half is more than enough. You just lack character, period. To me, in any country, not just this country, any country, if all you want is a multi-million-dollar handout and you're going to stand there and whine about what happened 150 years ago, and stand there and say, oh, I have it so bad. Why? Oh, my great-grandpappy was enslaved. I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you want to know? You want to know what my father endured? What my grandfather endured? I'm not talking 150 years ago. Do you know what they endured under the Nazis and then under the communists? Like, you really want to compare notes? You want to play who suffered more? Believe me, you're going to lose that one. You don't see me going around asking for reparations. You're in the greatest country in the world. Take advantage of the opportunities you have. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the dear leader, Barack Hussein Obama, now says reparations is an idea whose time has come. They are justified, and he is now urging Biden and the entire Democratic Party, go for it. Follow Gavin Newsom, follow California, San Francisco, other cities, and say we must support reparations for slavery. Good idea, bad idea. Dave in Pennsylvania. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How you doing, buddy? Happy 4th of July coming up.
Happy 4th of July. All the best to you and your family, Dave.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. Jeff, didn't a famous Republican conservative preacher, and I know that's going to hurt because it's the truth, by the name of the good, holy Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, coin this famous phrase, judge me upon the content of my character, not my skin color. And here's a quote: why do the Democrats do the polar opposite 180, like the race bait shenanigans of the satanic reverends Jesse Jackson and now Not So Sharpton and Jeremiah Wright, who's always wrong? Can you answer me on that, Jeff? Why have they turned away from that?
I think, by the way, you're dead on. This is a complete betrayal of Martin Luther King Jr. and his vision. A complete betrayal, a complete 180. They believe they can get by votes. I think they're desperate. I think they believe they've got to get over 90% African-American turnout for Biden to have any chance to win. And they believe you just bribe them. Just, you dangle $2, $3, $4, $5 million in front of them and they're going to rush to the polls. That's what this is now. This shows how desperate they are and how they're even willing to destroy our country in order to retain their grip on power.
That's what it is. It's 100% bribery buy my votes. I'll do this for you. And Jeff, you know who needs to really come out against this? We know Trump's against this, but how about Larry Elder and Tim Scott? How about those two guys? They can do the reverse. They can do the dipsy doodle flipperoo. They can say, hey, look, I didn't need reparations. Look at me. I'm a U.S. Senator. Look at me. I'm Larry Elder. I'm a successful talk show host guy. I'm an author. I've made it on my own. I ran for governor of California. Granted, he lost, but he did it on his own. He didn't need reparations. He did it on his own. They did it by their own sweat of their brow.
Oh, you're completely right. Now, look, I'm not, I opposed him on everything. I think it was a disaster for the country. But Obama didn't need reparations to become president. I mean, to me, that's the ultimate checkmate argument. So a black man, or he's half black, half white, biracial, but he identifies as black. So a black man can become the president. And by the way, we're the only country, majority white country, that has ever elected a black man as president. And so if Obama can become president, if Oprah can be one of the most powerful people in the corporate media, if Michael Jordan and LeBron James, I'm just giving them as examples, are two of the most wealthiest, influential, well-known people in sports, you can run down the whole list. They didn't need reparations to succeed. Blacks succeed, African Americans succeed in America all the time. They don't need reparations. So, no, this is about buying votes. That's what this is all about. It's about money and power. That's all this is. And Dave, I don't know about you, but I'm not paying that freaking reparations. Like, I don't think they've heard us yet. I will not pay for reparations. No way. Certainly not with my family history. Absolutely not. And Dave, I hope you don't, and I hope nobody else does. Because Dave, you never owned a slave. You were never, ever a slaveholder. And all of these people with their handout, all of these leeches and parasites, they were never slaves themselves. So what are we talking about?
Point, Jeff. Now, I'm going to use a biblical term, and I know that might offend everybody on the left, like Dracula to the crucifix or the garlic or the silver bullet to the werewolf. But, Jeff, and this is a biblical term. I'm going to wax theological this morning. Thank you if you let me. There's a difference between a slave and a servant. But, of course, the liberal media today wouldn't know the difference. The difference is a servant was somebody like Alfred from Batman, who not raised Bruce Wayne, but, was loved by the family and served the family. A slave is somebody like a taskmasters out of Egypt, the way they treated the Hebrew slaves. That's slavery. There's a big difference between a servant and slavery, Jeff. And I just wanted to coin that because a lot of people try to put the word gay has nothing to do. The initial meaning has nothing to do with being homosexual. It means to be happy, Jeff. The liberals and, of course, the academia like to change or add to the dictionary what they think things mean. But that's all I wanted to say, Jeff. And have a blessed holiday, and God bless America. USA all the way, baby.
USA all the way. God bless you. Thank you so much, Dave. I appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. California now, they're going to come out with a figure very, very soon. In terms of how much they want the residents of California to pay for reparations for slavery. Obama now is telling Biden, that's the model. That's the model we're going to use, except we'll have Congress or a blue ribbon panel do what California is doing, and then come up with their own number for everyone to pay across the country. Listen now, this is the chairperson of the California Task Force on Reparations. She's introducing herself to a hearing room, and she's saying, here's what our task force in California on reparations, here's why we've been set up, here's our mandate, here's our goal. Roll cut 5, Mike.
I'm the chairperson of the first in the nation California Reparations Task Force to study and develop reparations proposals for African Americans, with a special consideration for African Americans who are descendants of persons enslaved in the United States.
So that's pretty, that's another problem. There's going to be a lot of blacks who weren't descendants of slaves. They're going to have to foot the bill. They're going to have to help foot the bill. So, I mean, I don't know how they think this is an election winner. This is going to create so much resentment. This is going to create so much animosity. You want to talk about tearing our social fabric apart. This'll do it. Guaranteed this'll do it. So, listen again, saying, well, we're flexible. It doesn't have to be a $5 million check. It could be, as one of the people interviewed by NBC, it could be free health care. Could be you don't pay taxes. Could be you get a guaranteed job. It could be your children get free tuition, free college. Listen to her saying, there are many ways we can pay for reparations. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
We are mandated by statute to consider what potential compensation might look like. Documentation and examination shall include the facts related to all of the following: the federal and state laws that discriminated against formerly enslaved Africans and their descendants who were deemed United States citizens from 1868 to present.
So there you go. So that's what they're looking at. Obama now says, forget California. We've got to do the exact same thing for the whole country. 617-266-6868. Mark in the great state of Connecticut. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi.
Hey, my family comes from the same town in southern Sicily. My first grandfather, my father's father, came over in 1901. My mother's grandfather came over in 1903. Clearly, we were after slavery. So we shouldn't have to pay. We had nothing to do with it. And also, we did my blood. My blood is 85.5% Sicilian, 12% Greek, and the rest is African. So it means nothing.
Well, hold on now. Well, no, Mark, hold on. That's 3% African, Mark. Now, what's 3% out of 5 mil, Mark? What's 3%? Mike, do you have a calculator here? I want to make Mark some money. So, Mark, 3% of $5 million. Let's see, 10% is 500,000. You're looking at about $150,000, $200,000 there, Mark.
Yeah, I've earned everything. I have a nice house and stuff, and I've worked my butt off for those things. And I will continue to earn my own money. I don't want anything from anybody. As far as reparations go, the hundreds of thousands of lives given freeing the slaves, that's your reparations right there. That's it. That's
Mark,
what you got.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely dead on. You are 1,000% correct. Mark, thank you very much for that call. No, and that's the other problem, is you have so many Americans whose ancestors came after slavery, after the Civil War. I mean, we don't owe anybody. Who do we owe? Now, there is a big story in Reuters. I've been waiting for this. It came out a couple days ago, and I was waiting to discuss it, and this is giving me the perfect opportunity. Put down your coffee. If you're driving, please put this up a little bit louder. Wherever you are, I'm begging you, stop what you're doing. You got to hear this. So, Reuters did a thorough genealogical analysis of leading politicians, former presidents, current presidents in the White House and in Congress. And they looked at who was a slave holder, whose ancestors owned slaves. Listen now to this. You want to talk reparations? This is delicious. Oh, is this delicious? According to the Reuters genealogical analysis, every American president, every single American president, except for one, had one ancestor, either on their mother's side or their father's side, who was a slaveholder. Every single president except one. What do you think? Which one do you think? Who do you think? If I had to say to you, there's only one who on both sides you cannot trace through their ancestry any ties, any connection to slavery or being slaveholders. What would Obama, right? Obama? Yeah. Jeff, really? Yep. Joe Biden? Really? Jeff, I don't know. Bill Clinton? George W. Bush? Jeff, FDR? Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump. Because his ancestors, like Mark in Connecticut, except, Mark is of primarily Sicilian, but, a little bit of Greek and I guess some African in there. Donald Trump is German-Scottish. And his, mother and father, their ancestors came, all of them, after the Civil War. After there was slavery, after slavery ended. He is the only one none of whose ancestors were slaveholders. The only former president. Now, there are hundreds of powerful political leaders in Congress who have ties to slavery. Mitch McConnell, one of his ancestors owned slaves. Lindsey Graham. Okay, you can run down the list. But on the Democrat side, Elizabeth Warren, the chief spreading bull, the fake Indian, one of her ancestors. Yep. They owned slaves. In New Hampshire, Senator Jean Shaheen, one of her ancestors. Yep. Slaveholder. Maggie Hassan. Yep. One of her ancestors. Slaveholders. So here is what I propose. No. Let's keep it in the family, as they say. You want to push reparations for slavery? Okay. Don't come after me. Don't come after Mark. Don't come after Donald J. Trump. Don't come after anybody whose ancestors arrived, or like me, I'm an actual immigrant who arrived way after slavery. No. You want reparations. Obama's got to pay. By the way, that's through his white mother. His white mother's family actually owned slaves. So, Obama's got to pay reparations. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, they got to pay for reparations. Jean-François, John Kerry, he's got to pay for reparations. Mitch, all that money he made from China. Hey, spread the wealth around a little bit, Mitch the Squish. Chief, Elizabeth Warren, out of that 25-30 million that you've made while you've been a senator, you phony, you fraud, you. No. Kick it in the till. Kick it in the till. Okay? A little bit for the reparations fund. So, let the politicians pay. Let these former presidents pay. Jimmy Carter, pay up. Clinton, pay up. George W., pay up. Obama, pay up. Maggie Hassan, Jean Shaheen, pay up. Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch. Both of them had one of their ancestors had slaves. Pay up. I'm sorry. Let them pay. I don't think anybody should pay. Please don't misunderstand me. But I'm just saying, if you're going to play this game, start with yourself. So, Obama, you made over $1 billion pimping out the presidency. $1 billion. Take a couple $100 million and put your money where your mouth is. You phony, you fraud, you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Cliff in Mattapan. Thanks for holding, Cliff, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi.
You know, like Howard Carr would say for the blacks, we don't want any special treatment. We just want to be treated like an illegal alien, free everything. But anyways, right? Are they going to say that Africans are just came from Africa, going to get reparations? Jamaicans, Haitians, you know, there's all different type of blacks. They just came in the last 100 years to America. How are they going to help those people out if they really want to help the blacks out?
Cliff, I'm not kidding. They have to pay. I'm serious. Haitians have to pay. Jamaicans have to, and people of Jamaican descent or Haitian descent, say you come from Africa, like you arrived now or a generation ago or, whatever. There are many from Egypt, many from Nigeria, many from, from many places around Africa. They got to pay. Cliff, I don't know your ancestors, but you got to pay, my friend. So many blacks are going to have to pay reparations. Do you see how crazy this is?
Jeff, being from Haiti, right? Hello?
Cliff, please. Yeah, go ahead, my friend. You have the floor.
Yes. Being from Haiti, if you look at in Savannah, Georgia, 1779, they went to Haiti to help them fight the independence. There's a statue of 6 Haitians in Savannah, Georgia right now. So we paid our ways down there. If there were any kind of reparations, they should include Haitians also. And we built Chicago. Haitian guy built Chicago, started Chicago, the state of Chicago. It's like it's going to be a kind of crazy deal. The only way they can do it is give us the Indian treatment, saying, if you're black, you don't pay no taxes. And case closed. We're talking about black Americans, not anybody else.
Yeah, Cliff, no, they want to really focus on African Americans and those who can prove either on the mother or the father side could trace their descendants or their ancestry, that they are descendants of someone who was a slave. And so, no, their argument is that if you come from the Caribbean, if you come from Africa, in other words, but after slavery, then you have to pay. Asians have to pay, Latinos have to pay, whites have to pay, everybody's paying.
We'll pay, but what are we getting for it?
Well, to pay them. We're gonna make a lot of millionaires, Cliff. That's the idea. A lot of millionaires.
Only that. Some of the black people, which they don't watch the news, we call, like Rush Limbaugh will call them low information voters. They're gonna think they're gonna get some of that money. They won't get anything. It's kind of crazy. They better educate themselves to find out what's in that bill if they really want to do something. Like slavery was bad. It's the country started, by building, slaves in the back of slaves and all that stuff, which was a bad deal. But Haitians were colonized by the French. They kicked their butts, and then the Haitians had to pay reparation to the French for kicking their butts. It's kind of like crazy, a crazy deal. So this world is turning into an upside down thing, and
that's the thing. And Cliff, look, you're making a brilliant point. There are so many injustices in history. If you spend your time trying to undo those injustices, we're never going to move forward on anything. So, just think about it on a personal level, Cliff. If you started to go back and say, oh, the injustice is done to my father, my grandfather, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother, you wouldn't live. Because you're just trying to refight battles of the past. So that's why, to me, history is history. The past is the past. You can't undo the past. All you can change is the present and the future. But no, this is the gravy train, Cliff, and they want to ride it, and they think you and me and all of us are going to pay for it. And I got news for them. We're not paying. Cliff, thank you very much for that call. Believe me, we have enough problems as it is. And by the way, on a simple math point, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. We're $32 trillion in debt. Where are we going to get the money to pay for all of this? El loco. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I got to tell you, the audience on fire today. Absolutely on fire. Text machine is burning up. You can text us 70470, 70470. Super quick reset. Obama now all in on reparations. He had a private meeting with Joe Biden telling him that if he's going to win, in fact, he wants him to drop out. He says it's time to hang it up. But if you want to win, if there's any chance of us winning, you're going to have to seize the reparations issue, drive up African American turnout to the level that Obama received in 2008, 2012. If Joe Biden's going to have any chance to win in 2024, and he believes by embracing reparations for slavery, this will be the ticket to power again for the Democrats. 617-266-6868 is the number. Obama now says reparations are justified, that blacks helped black slaves helped build the United States, and that their descendants are now owed. And his only concern is, yes, cut him a check, $3, $4, $5 million, but don't throw out racial quotas, affirmative action, all these other race-based policies that have been implemented over the last 30, 40, 50 years. He says if we do that, then reparations may not be such a good idea. So he wants reparations, but still keep all of the race-based programs and initiatives in housing, in education, in business. In other words, racial quotas and affirmative action. This is pure critical race theory. Divide us along racial lines and use skin color to divide, to judge people based on the color of their skin. Black Lives Matter now says this is their number one demand. They are with Obama, and they are now demanding that Biden embrace and adopt it as well. Biden has said they're studying the issue, and they'll come out with a formal position probably by the fall. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 617. Jeff, the entire issue of reparations is designed to rip us apart. Like you said, this is critical race theory on steroids. Bingo. 202, Jeff, this is one of those issues like rape. Just a little rape is no more acceptable than a lot of rape. So a little reparations or a lot of reparations, it's unacceptable. And then this one, very dear to my heart, 917, Jeff, my family descended from slaves, serfs to be more precise, in the pre-Soviet Russian Empire and then under Soviet communism. Do you think Putin will be cutting me a check anytime soon? That's my father. That's my grandfather. You think I'm getting a freaking check? You don't see me whining about lack of generational wealth. 6-1. And by the way, they would never cut a check, and they shouldn't cut a check. 617-266-6868. Gary in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Gary, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Gary?
Oh, I don't know, discouraged. I just want to say one thing before I tell you what I think. I sat on the couch with my son, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, whatever it was, and listened to that man spout hope and change and how he was going to fundamentally change America. Well, look around, folks. Anyway, I think everybody's got it a little bit wrong here. in the sense that we're being conned. And we're being told that all this is about the past and the terrible things that we did to the poor people that lived before anybody here today was born. I think it's completely different. I think it's all about the future. And the past is just the vehicle they're using to get us there. In other words, obviously we know that they're going after socialism, and only an idiot wouldn't see that. The socialists love it, the capitalists don't. And you have to choose. Where are you? So they see this, everybody does. So socialism is obviously take away from the people that have, hand it to the people that don't have it, and that's the only way the feckless mediocrities can have power over the superlative, to subjugate everybody. So that's what this is about, the future, creating socialism, and what we can't afford it. You've already elucidated on that. We haven't got the money. We won't have the money. They know it. Everybody knows it, and they don't care. They want to strip us of everything so they can empower themselves in the future. It's got really nothing to do with the poor people of the past. They're dead. Nobody cares about them. And all the poor black people that we have really, the white man has crushed the black with welfare. We have hurt them more than we've ever helped them, because all the people, the proponents of that, operated it under all circumstances to the detriment of the black man, because they taught that person, that guy that was an individual human being, that this is life. Hold your hand out, we'll put something in it. And once they ingrain that in their personality, it's wicked. It gets passed on generationally. I mean, look what we've done to everybody in this country. It's horrific. And we're sitting here talking about it like, well, it's not an argument of reparations. It's an argument about what's going to happen.
Ah, brilliant. Absolutely. I mean, Gary, don't get me wrong. I only have eyes for my wife, but I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. 617-266-6868 is the number. Just to bounce off Gary's previous call, which I thought was absolutely dynamite. This is clearly redistribution of wealth. He's right. This is pure state socialism. And that's why Obama now is pushing it so hard. It's take from the many to give to the politically selected, and empower the elites in the process, because they always decide whose money they should take, whose money they should give, which protected groups are favored, which groups are not favored. This is pure socialism. Take from one group to give to another, and then make them completely and utterly dependent. And he's right. Welfare in the long run destroys your character, destroys your sense of personal responsibility. It destroys your soul, because it just teaches you and indoctrinates you to keep your hand out. Always keep your hand out. Don't, the old expression, you teach, you give, you go fishing, you give them a fish, you fed them for a day. But if you teach them how to fish, you fed them for life. This is about making sure that they're dependent upon that fish every single day from you. So you have all the power. They're the ones who are submissive and in servitude. So that's it's pure, naked socialism. There's no question. Now, listen, this is, and they're really getting people's hopes up. This is, you can see now, BLM, Obama, Gavin Newsom, the Democrats now, they're really ginning up expectations. This is now at the California reparations hearing, their last one, and look at what now some of these people are saying. Forget 3 million. They want 5 million, 7 million. In fact, listen to how much they say they're owed. Roll cut 6, Mike.
America owes us the whole damn country. Because if it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth and a life for a life, they owe us the whole damn country.
Oh, the whole thing. Just the whole thing. So basically what they're saying is you're going to keep paying us reparations ad infinitum, forever. Because you owe us everything. Everything. Here's some more. Roll cut. Now, these are activists. These are BLM, Black Lives Matter supporters. And they're all coming up, and they're all giving their reasons why it's time to pay. Roll cut 7, Mike.
It would change fundamentally everything. Everything Martin Luther King was looking for was nothing. It was wrapped up in one word: reparations.
What I ask you to do is for you to stay the course. Don't punk out. Don't give in to pressure, because I've seen you all cave under pressure, but I think you are all capable of greatness. So please stay focused, stay the course, and cut the check.
This society takes from the black community and doesn't always include us. So that's why we need reparations. That's why we need reparations. I ended with that. Charles Sullivan. Long live Charles Sullivan.
And even so, now, by the way, the bidding keeps going up. So the Democrats are floating $3 million. So anyone who can prove they're a descendant of a slave, cut him a $3 million check. Now it's gone up to $5 million. But $5 million may not be enough. They're saying 5 may not cover it. By the way, how they come up with these figures, nobody knows. Okay, it's like, think of Bill in Sudbury or Ben in North Andover or Frank in Gloucester. They're just, when they call in, you're like, you just banging your head against the wall. Where they come up with these ideas, these figures. Anyway, it's moonbats. Do they have to pay? No, they don't. It's tax-free, Mike. Mike is asking me in my ear as I'm talking, do they even have to pay taxes on this $5 million? No. It's all tax-free, baby. So, but now $5 million is not enough. Roll cut 7A, Mike.
I believe that $5 million in reparations is too little for the work that foundational Black Americans have done for this country and as well for other countries. I believe that $7.6 million is a number that can be used very wisely in our foundational Black American communities.
7.6 million. Notice this is 0.6. I mean, why not 0.5? Why not 0.7? Like, how did you come up with 7.6 million? Huh? Yeah, that's you're right, Mike. I would just, 8 million. What the hell? Round it up. Hey, if we're going to shell out tens and tens and tens of trillions of dollars, hey, at this point, as Hillary Clinton would say, what difference does it make? 617. So now it's 7.6 million. It's like extortion. The price keeps going up and up and up. And by the way, Black Lives Matter. We don't get what we want, America will burn. We don't get what we want, America will burn. And they burned America, and nobody stopped them. And now we've created a Frankenstein's monster. 617-266-6868. Dave in Revere Beach. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dave.
Jeff, how you doing? Jeff, I look at it like this. Jeff, I've been down south, okay? I drove down to Florida a few years back. Now, Jeff, the only ones who really do deserve anything are the ones who are still caught up in the sharecrop house. Jeff, I went down a side street. And you've got people still living in the sharecrop houses down around Townsend, Georgia, the Carolinas, and still almost looking like they still live on the plantation. It's like they never got off the plantation, Jeff. And even like down in Louisiana, those people down there, to where I see my personal self, Jeff, they're the ones who need this type of money to get out of the mess that they're in. Maybe they were never shown another way. But these people there are descendants, not these people that are living in Chicago or living down in Manhattan who want to just take over, not get a job, and do what they want to do with everybody else's money. And the ones who don't want to do anything are the ones who are causing all the problems in the streets the way they are today. And Jeff, like you're saying, they want the handout, but the handout should be going to the people who really do need it. Not these ones who say, well, I got a mortgage to pay. I got bills to pay. Give it to the people who really are descendants of the days of old.
Well, you're right, because when you go to parts of the Deep South, as you're talking about, you know, I mean, they had Jim Crow, they had segregation. I mean, it's, you know, I've been to South Carolina, I've been to Georgia, I've been to North Carolina, and you're right, certain pockets you see of poverty, honestly, black poverty, it breaks your heart. I mean, it really does. And I do remember when we went to Charleston, Grace and I, this is about maybe 20 years ago, we did a tour, and they took us literally to a slave, like a former ex-slave plantation. And you walk in, and it really, it's like chills down your spine when you see the big house, and then you see the quarters for the slaves. I mean, it's like you would put a horse in there. Like they were saying, well, this is where the slaves lived. And it's like they called them the stables. And this is where they slept. And I'm like, my God, it's not even fit for an animal. So when you see it up close, and then we were there in the summertime, and it was hot. You know, that kind of Deep South, you know, humid, hot. And they said, you know, and there is the cotton field. So at this time of the day, and it was like 100 degrees, but I mean humid. I mean, I'm sweating like a pig, and we were just outside 10 minutes. And they go, they'd be working the fields. And I'm thinking like, ay, ay, ay. Oh, my God. And you want to talk about sick and brutal. So, yeah, when you're talking about African American, and thank you for that call, Dave. When you're talking about African Americans in the Deep South, I have a lot of sympathy for them. Now, I don't think the answer is a check. I think the answer is good education, good schools, economic opportunities. You know, again, I go back to the fishing analogy. Help them to be able to fish so they can feed themselves for the rest of their life. But outside of Deep South, it's a grift. 617-266-6868 is the number. I don't know what the audience, what you ate yesterday, what you drank yesterday, but whatever you did, keep doing it. Holy shamoly. On fire today. Text line is, it's going to blow. It's going to blow. 70470, 70470. The number 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Listen to this, baby. 781. Jeff, I find it interesting that reparations was based on people being sold. Now they're being sold to the Democrats. It just proves that everybody has a price. Freedom doesn't mean nearly as much as millions of dollars. Holy shamoly. I mean, think about this, right? What is the whole issue of slavery? That human beings were sold for money. And what are they now asking? Money. Buy us off. You want us to end our grievances, our victimhood, our victimology, our constant complaining about systemic racism and oppression and mistreatment, and you want it all to stop? Okay, well, Black Lives Matter. This is it. Our price, $7.6 million. $5 million, little too low, but you give us $7.6 million. Hey, we, you know, our ancestors were sold. Now we're going to sell ourselves. When you really think about it, it's a deeply insulting argument that they're making. What they're saying is, yeah, our ancestors were for sale. We're for sale. But unlike their ancestors who were captured, subjugated, kidnapped, and sold against their will, they're saying we'll sell ourselves voluntarily out of our own free will. Okay. You want us to stop complaining? Okay. I'll tell you what. Our mouths will now be closed. Put the money on the table. Another text. I don't want to get into all of it. 617. Just basically this. Lyndon Johnson famously said after he passed the Great Society, and he referred to blacks using the N-word, okay? Bigger, but, you know, with an N. The N-word. that Lyndon Johnson said, after we've passed this great society, in other words, creating this elaborate welfare system, which, by the way, originally they aimed directly at blacks. It's now expanded to whites and Latinos and everybody else. But at the time, in the mid-'60s, it was concentrated heavily on African Americans. He said, now we're going to make them so dependent upon the government. Quote, these ends will never leave the Democratic plantation. They will vote for us now for 100 years. So when Gary in New Hampshire said, when they foisted this welfare state, it wasn't with good intentions. Ironically, it was to crush the black man again, a second time. So just like Democrats oppressed and enslaved blacks under slavery and then under Jim Crow, in the mid-1960s, they oppressed them again. This time, not on a slave plantation or on segregation, but on the Democratic economic plantation. And when Republicans, especially conservatives like us, say, we want everybody to exceed, to excel, to succeed, to achieve their God-given potential, everybody should get off the plantation, because we believe that everybody left on their own, work hard, personal responsibility, strong families, self-help, self-reliance, you will succeed in America. And your children will do even better than you, and their grandchildren will do even better than your children. And that's the American story. And there are many blacks and many African Americans who have proven that. And by the way, just as a quick aside, this may come as a surprise to people. Recent statistics came out. Do you know the most successful ethnic/racial group in America? Take a guess. People say, Jeff, whites. Really? Jeff, okay, I don't, Asians? Who? Indian Americans. From India, I don't mean Native American Indians. Indian Americans per capita make twice the income that white Americans do. Again, on average, we're talking averages. Twice. Double. They make double what white Americans make. Now, Indians, to me, I don't care about skin color, but if you want to get into technicalities, look how brown their skin is. They have brown skin. It's not black, but, hey, it ain't white, I'll tell you this. Now, if this is my only reason for saying this, if this is such a white supremacist country where minorities are constantly oppressed and held down in systemic racism and you can't advance in this country, it's rigged for the white man. Well, how do you explain Indian Americans having the highest per capita income in all of America among every ethnic, racial group you can possibly think of, and double that of whites? And by the way, you know what's the second biggest group? Arab Americans. Americans of Lebanese descent, Syrian descent. They're number 2, number 3 in terms of per capita income. By the way, Nigerian Americans, those who come from Nigeria, 10th. You know where white Americans rank? 17th. 17th. Chinese Americans or Americans of Chinese descent, Korean descent, Japanese descent do infinitely better than white Americans. Cubans, Americans of Cuban descent, make more per capita than white Americans. So, Asians, Indians, Africans, Nigerians, Cubans, Latinos make more in this country per capita than white Americans do. And you're going to tell me we're a systemically racist country that favors whites, or this is somehow a white supremacist country? Yes, in the South, during Jim Crow and under slavery, no question. But we got rid of that 50 years ago. So we're being told and sold a pack of lies. If Indians can succeed, if Asians can succeed, if Nigerians can succeed, if Cubans can succeed, don't tell me they're systemically oppressed. So I'm sorry, but I know way too many African Americans here. Tim Scott, I mean, I could just go on. There's so many of them who have achieved the American dream. And Tim Scott, literally descendant of slave. I mean, they picked cotton in South Carolina. And through hard work, personal responsibility, strong families, in other words, keep your nose clean and work and work and work, you will rise. Now, look, life, sometimes you get a break, others don't get them. Some people are more intelligent than others. Tim Scott's a very smart guy. But the point is, some will succeed a little more. Some will succeed a tad less. Not everybody can be a U.S. senator. But succeed you will. And then your children, grandchildren, it's just play by the rules, work hard. In America, there's no limit to how high you can go. 617-266-6868. That's why this whole reparations argument is, to me, disgusting and revolting. It is designed to divide and tear us apart. James in Virginia. Thanks for holding, James, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeffrey. I just wanted you to clarify, would this actually become law? I'm kind of confused on that. Would that become law?
In California, definitely. What Obama wants? Yeah, no, they want a national law.
National law. Okay. Well, that brings me, if they want to have reparations, I would say start some places. Number one, Congress don't take a pay raise for the next 20 years. There's a whole swirl of things that you can do, and I just don't understand how where in the world are we going to come up with this money? And what I'm afraid is that law-abiding taxpayers, I don't put nothing past the government, as you can see over the last several years, is them coming after your tax rebates when you file for taxes, taking money out of that. The problem with Washington is that it's not a money problem; it's a spending problem. So if if some of these bills that go through the House and the Senate, why don't they cut some pork out of these things and put it into reparations? Jeff, I've called this show quite a few times, and I'm a 30-year Marine Corps veteran, and I served with African Americans, and we get together, once a year as a reunion. And I tell you what, we never saw, this is going back to the early 80s, late 70s. And I tell you what, we never saw black and white. And African Americans I talk to today don't believe in it. They just don't believe in it. And, like you said, the Chinese, they built our railroads. Where would we be without the Chinese building our railroads, who were whipped and were treated humanely, working 18 hours a day, dying in caves with dynamite coming down on them in these caves. I mean, where does it go? I mean, where does it start? I mean, it's just
that's
ridiculous.
The thing. You can't. See, James, you nailed it. It's a Pandora's box. Once you open this, it doesn't end. That's the point. I think that's what they want. Because then you're right. Then people of Chinese descent will say, well, give us our money. Then the Japanese will say, well, give us our money for the internment. Then the Irish will say, well, give us our money. Then the Italians will say, give us our money. Then the Jews will say, give us our money. So you see, and then we're all at each other's throats. And by the way, and that's the story of the world. For most of the world, that's, you go to many countries in the world, that's all they do is they're just slaughtering each other. It's tribe versus tribe. It's really very primitive. And we've done something really exceptional, very rare in the history of the world. Never mind today, in the history of the world. And that's what socialism does. It destroys. It pits people against each other. Group against group against group. And it's based on resentment and envy. And that's what this is. You didn't succeed because of the white man. You didn't succeed because of what happened 150 or 200 or 250 years ago. Well, don't talk to me about 150 or 200 or 250 years ago. Just go out and get a job. It's really that simple. Stay clean. Don't get in trouble. Just, to me, life is just very, just common sense. Look, the United States is the only country in the world. People don't know this. The only country. You want to see how incredible we are? We have eliminated poverty. Let me repeat that. We have eliminated poverty. What do I mean by that? If you get a high school degree, just not college, high school, get married, don't have children out of wedlock before you get married. Get married and then have children. And simply get a job. You cannot be poor in America. Zero. The percentage of people in America who have a high school degree, married, then have children, so they're not out of wedlock, and who work. Percentage of people in poverty in America, zero. Zero. Never in the history of the world has this been done. So don't tell me that the answer is reparations. In fact, reparations will make the problem infinitely worse. Infinitely worse. And James, in the end, you never enslaved anybody. I never enslaved anybody. Those activists demanding 7.6 million, they were never slaves. Their parents were never slaves. Their grandparents, their great-grandparents, their great-great-grandparents were never slaves. So what are we talking about? Imagine if the rest of the world operated like this. There'd be no countries anywhere. The whole world would go bankrupt. So this is a recipe for perpetual turmoil, perpetual hatred. And I believe that's what Obama wants. He wants to destroy us from within. This is about him turning America into a third world banana republic. That has always been its goal. And that's why, James, part of me now loves it that he proposed this. Because this is such a political disaster. It's political kryptonite. If they're stupid enough to embrace this, the Democrats will never gain power for an entire generation. Forget losing the white vote. They're going to lose the Latino vote. They're going to lose the Indian American vote. They're going to lose the Asian vote. They're going to lose most blacks. Like, this is one of that and grooming children. They're on the verge now. They're so close. This and pushing the sexual mutilation of children. These are the two issues that are going to destroy the Democratic Party. So if they're stupid enough to embrace it, honestly, James, I'm just going to get out of the way. I'm just, okay, guys, go ahead. You want to embrace this? This is your issue? This is the hill you want to die on? Be my guest.
One thing, Jeff, if I may, these teachers unions getting all these millions of dollars. Why don't they put more money into reparations? And number two, my grandfather and my grandparents came over here at the turn of the century in 1900. When they came here, they became my grandfather became a fisherman. My grandmother worked as a seamstress. They had 7 kids, and what they did was they taught their kids. They said, "Hey, listen, we learn the American language. We respect the rule of law. But when we're in the house, we can speak. Italian." And but I tell you what, I had six uncles fight in the Marine Corps, in Tara and in Iwo Jima and all over. And I also had one uncle that served in Vietnam 4 tours. So we come from a family. So get off your butt and make a difference.
Make something of your life. Oh, you're dead on. James, I want to thank you for your service. Again, always. And thank you for your call. Really good call. 6-1, you're just right. Just, look, really, seriously, get off your ass, shut up, and get a job. Really, I mean, that's, really, you want to start, that's the solution to all your problems. Don't go, look, you don't notice they have time to go to all these hearings. Where's my money? And I'm like, if you gave 1/10 as much energy and effort into, I don't know, getting a job, working, putting food on the table, taking care of your family, you'd be way ahead in life. Sitting around with your hand out is not the way to get ahead in life. 617-266-6868 is the number. Agree, disagree. Kelly in Salisbury. Thanks for holding, Kelly, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I had a couple of points. You mentioned groups of successful people or people who have overcome things, and you forgot a very big category, a category that was very oppressed, and that's women. Women during the 1800s, if your father left you land, your husband took it. It immediately became your husband's. You were only allowed to do domestic work. You were not allowed to earn money. You were not allowed to vote. You were not allowed to do any of those things. And how did we get ahead in life? We worked hard and we made good choices. And honestly, I find it absolutely demeaning to put a general rule out that the only way that an African American that can be successful is if they get a handout. Work hard.
I'm so with you. It's the most insulting, Kelly. I'm so with you. To me, it's one of the most insulting, degrading things you can say about an African American person. I'm so with you. Kelly, do you think this is going to pop with the American people? Like, do you think they're going to buy into this?
I feel it, as you've said before, it will rip us apart. It will rip us apart.
Because the plan is they're going to force us through taxes. They're just going to seize our taxes. And then they're going to put all of us on a payment plan. So they cut the checks. This is what they're talking about. You cut the checks, you rack up the debt, but then, you, me, all of us, we're going to get a certain percentage of our income, whether we like it or not, seized by the government to go to a reparations fund. And so it's going to cost, you hundreds of thousands over your lifetime, me hundreds of thousands of dollars. Kelly, can you hang on? Because I'm up against this. I want to ask Kelly, because she makes a very good point. Look at women. They couldn't own anything. They couldn't vote. Oftentimes their property was taken from them, let's say by their husband. You want to talk about no generational wealth? Look at them. 820 on the great WRKO. Okay, let's go right back to Kelly in Salisbury. Kelly, so I guess this is the question I want to ask you. If women were able to succeed and every other group has been able to succeed, why do we need reparations for African Americans? You're right. isn't this one of the most condescending, insulting arguments you can make? They can't make it on their own. If that's what they're saying. Unless you cut them multi-million-dollar checks, they're the only ones that can achieve the American dream. This is what they're trying to tell us right now, Kelly.
I don't believe, it's my belief that not every African American believes this. I equate it a little bit. Do you remember when we received pandemic checks? You're embarrassed. I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to cash the check. And I think that a lot of African Americans would be embarrassed to cash that check if it ever were to go through. I feel like what's going to happen? You see these states that are extreme left-wing crazy, and people are leaving those states. Well, will people, hard-working people, business owners start leaving our country? It's scary.
Oh, it really is. Kelly, do you think that this is going to resonate with voters? Do you think, because they want to seize our income. This is how they're planning on doing it. So they'll seize a good chunk of your paycheck, my paycheck, everyone's paychecks, and then they'll come up with a number like sort of, okay, well, Kelly, for reparations, you owe the government $248,000. Now, you can't pay it all in one sum, but, we'll take $20,000 a year from your paycheck, say for 10 years or 25 years, 20 years, whatever it is, until we get the right amount of money, and you're done. You're in the clear. And they want to do that to everybody who's non-African American, who doesn't have a descendant, who's not a descendant of slaves. Do you think most people will accept that? Are most Americans willing to, pay $200,000, $250,000, $300,000 for something they had nothing to do with?
100% no, but also I feel like they steal elections, and they also invite people to vote. They pay for votes. So it may help, like during the midterms when everyone was going to get a free ride for college, they'll vote for it. However, it'll be tied up in legalities forever. It will never go through, and everyone's just mad at each other. So it'll all just be tied up, and it will rip our country apart. And it will never go through, and every American will be unhappy at that point. Didn't they do a good job?
Kelly, thank you very much for that call. I think she nailed it. It's definitely going to get litigated. It's going to go to the courts, and it's going to go on. And by the time everything is done, everybody's going to hate everybody else. I mean, the people who are expecting the money and have been told they're going to get the money, they're going to be very disappointed they haven't gotten the money. Everybody else is, why should we have to pay? And it's going to be like a cancer. It's just going to go on and on and on. 617-266-6868. David in Woburn. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just happy I don't have to pay reparations yet, David.
Well, look, I want to make the case for reparations. I kind of believe in reparations.
Go ahead.
And this is how I want to do it. I believe all reparations should be paid, whatever they want to figure it out, should be paid to all former slaves, and it should be paid by all former slave owners. What do you think of that?
Oh, in other words, Elizabeth Warren, Barack, because Obama was his mother's side, former slaveholder. So you're saying let Obama, let Warren, let anyone whose ancestors were involved in owning slaves, let them pay, correct?
You have to be a former slave, and you have to be a former slave owner.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yes.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you meant like a descendant. No, I hear what you're saying.
The only former slaves are eligible to get the money, and it's got to be paid out by former slave owners. Huh? Yeah, that's my plan.
So in other words, I agree with you. I mean, it'll stun them. It's true. No, I agree with you. I think slaves should get repaid, former slaves, and by former slaveholders. Yep. So find me a slave and get me a former slaveholder, and you tell them it's time to pay up.
No.
David, politically, Obama, the Democrats think it's political gold, that it's going to drive African-American turnout the heights they had under Obama. This is going to rescue Biden potentially in 2024. Do you think that's going to happen? Or do you think they're going to alienate everyone else and it is going to blow up in their face?
Happen at the expense of everybody else. You know, so I don't think it's going to work. You know, and I still remember that who was a senator that years ago he had praised Strom Thurmond, you know, for his 100th
Trent
birthday.
Locke. Yeah, Trent Locke from Mississippi.
Saying, "Oh, geez, you know, yeah." And they asked him on BTV, "Do you believe in reparations?" "Oh, yeah, I believe in reparations." I just wish some of these people would have the guts to say, "No, I don't believe in reparations," and this is why. The Democrats think that the blacks are too stupid to get a job unless they get a handout. I think blacks are smart. I think they can do it. They work hard, you know, get a job, be productive, and they can make it in this world. There's plenty of examples. Like you would.
Oh, you nailed it. Oh, David, you absolutely nailed it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Larry in the great state of Texas. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Hey, Jaffatic, is that you?
Pardon me, Larry?
Yeah. Hey, let me tell you something. I'm sitting up there looking at a picture of my grandmother who was a slave. Now, what do you feel about that? I just want to know.
How do I feel about the fact that you're looking at a picture of your grandmother who was a slave?
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, I'm very sorry she was a slave. Breaks my heart that she was a slave.
Well, wait a minute. You say it breaks your heart?
That's right.
You say it breaks your heart. Well, if it breaks your heart, what do you think it does to me?
Oh, I understand. Of course, it bothers you. But, I mean, Larry, just to be fair, my grandfather was a slave. He was in a concentration camp under the Nazis for a year and a half. Half his family was wiped out, literally murdered. And then he was in a concentration camp under the communists in a gulag, which is a slave labor camp, for 3 years. And my father, as a little boy, was put in a concentration camp. And he almost died. And, and I heard stories about this when I was a young boy growing up. I'm not asking for reparations. I mean, I feel sorry that happened to your grandmother. I know it must bother you because it bothers me. But what does this have to do with you, Larry? You're not a slave. You're in America. You can do and achieve anything you want, Larry.
Yeah, I can do that, okay, because I work my way to do that. But that doesn't say that I don't have something else that's owed me because of what I had to go through to get where I am today. You see? So what we're going to do is, if we get the reparations and stop making excuses about it, it's almost like you crying crocodile tears, about black people is going to give reparations and they're going to be rich and then they ain't going to never be called nothing anymore. And stuff like that. That's not necessary, Jeff. You're a good man. I've heard some good things from you. I've been listening to you for a long time. But y'all still can't get the going back and paying what you have been responsible for. And we're right here. You're using Black Lives Matter. Our old folks don't know no Black Lives Matter.
Well, Larry, look, you may not know Black Lives Matter, to your credit, but I'm telling you, Black Lives Matter is what's driving this, that group, and Obama's allied with them, and it's their activists that are really pushing this. But Larry, look, I want to get back to something that you said. You said you're owed reparations. Now, Larry, why are you owed reparations? Larry, what did I ever do to you, honestly, that I have to pay you reparations? What did I ever do to you, Larry? What do I owe you, Larry, in Texas?
Yeah. You said, what do you owe me? But, Jeff, this is a country. This is not you. See, this is a country that I did this for.
No, I know, but Larry, someone's got to pay, and I'm going to be paying. I mean, not only me, you're right, many other people. But I'm just saying, but Larry, hold on. Why do I have to pay? Why do my listeners, Kuhner Country, why do we have to pay? Why do we owe this to you, Larry? What are you owed? How come we owe you? What do we owe you?
Okay, you owe me as a country.
Why?
You don't owe me as an individual.
But I'm paying for it. Larry, Larry, please, just let me just say this one sentence. I promise I'll give you all the time you need. Larry, if you have to end up paying taxes, an extra $250,000, say over 10 years, they go, okay, Larry, over 10 years, you have to pay an extra $250,000 in taxes. So that's $25,000 a year. We're going to take that out of your check for the whole year. And you're going to have to do it for 10 years because that's what you owe a certain group of people because of a past injustice. You would say, whoa, why are you taking the money out of my paycheck? So I'm going to have to take money out of my paycheck, or the government's going to take money out of my paycheck to pay for you, Larry. Now, why should I have to pay for Larry to get $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 million? What did I do to you, Larry?
Okay, what did I do to you? Why do I have to pay $10 billion to go over in Ukraine and fight, and they ain't did nothing to me, and I ain't did nothing to them? But you sending $15 billion over there to kill your own brother. Why?
Well, I'm not Ukrainian, Larry. Larry, I'm against the war in Ukraine. And my ancestors didn't come from Ukraine, Larry. But no, Larry, you're right. No, look, Larry, on this, you're right. We should not be sending money to Ukraine. I agree. But we're talking something different. Now you say you want money. And by the way, Larry, you admitted earlier, and you sound like a very reasonably intelligent guy, a very nice man. Larry, you work hard. You have a job. I'm sure you have your own house. You've done okay for yourself. So why do you need money from us, Larry?
Yes, because if somebody owes you a credit debt, okay? If somebody owes you a credit debt, you want that money paid regardless of what? You want that money paid regardless of what? If somebody buys something from you and don't pay you, buy your time, buy your goods or what, and they don't pay you, you go to the government to get them to make the government pay you back. No,
I get that. No, Larry, I understand the thinking, but Larry, the taxpayers were the government. So in the end, Larry, I'm going to have to pay. Tens of millions of Americans like me are going to have to pay. And Larry, think about this. I never enslaved you. Your grandmother, your wonderful grandmother up on that wall, I never enslaved her. My ancestors never enslaved her. Larry, my ancestors were just as enslaved as your ancestors. Hell, my father was a slave. My grandfather was a slave. So, Larry, think about everything I had to endure and my family had to endure. And now you're asking me to pay even more? Don't you see how unfair that is, Larry? Like, you say you're owed. Well, what am I owed? And there's so many others like us. You see what I'm saying, Larry? If we start thinking like this, everybody's owed.
Hey, well, aren't you going to fight for your ancestors?
No, but Larry, I don't want you to pay for what happened to my ancestors. I don't think that's fair, Larry.
Wait a minute. You say you don't think it's fair. But your ancestors have already suffered this. So you don't care about your ancestors.
No, of course I care about my ancestors, Larry, but they're dead. So, I mean, it's not going to bring them back to life, Larry. And it's not fair that you, Larry, should have to pay for what happened to my ancestors. Because, Larry, look, really, honestly, think about it, really, objectively. Try to be fair about this, Larry. What about the poor Native American Indians? Aren't they owed? What about the Chinese? Aren't they owed? Who came to our country? The Irish, who were really mistreated. And Larry, please don't take my word for it. Read Frederick Douglass. He has a very powerful passages. He was, a big abolitionist. And he said in the South, some parts of the South, the Irish were even treated worse than the slaves because they had to buy slaves, so they were considered more value than Irish workers. So there were some jobs that they had the Irish do that were so filthy and so dirty that they wouldn't even have the slaves do. And so Frederick Douglass said the way the Irish were mistreated, it turned his stomach. My point is, the Irish then can claim that they need reparations. Larry, if we go down this road, everybody is suing everybody. Larry, we have to leave the past in the past, Larry. Larry, I'm going to give you the last word. Go.
All right. My grandmother lived till she was 110 years old, okay?
Wow.
She lived in 3 centuries. She worked for people, this government, doing the Sam Houston wars and everything else. She worked for the government. The government is the one that owns these people. She worked for the government doing slavery. She served 129 heads of state. She's in the Goodman Museum. Now go read about it. Let's talk later.
Well, Larry, you should be very proud of her. I mean, she sounds like a really impressive woman. Larry, look, we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this, Larry. You were not enslaved. Please remember that. Can't we all get along? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a big reaction to Larry. Larry in Texas. Everybody's got an opinion about Larry. Larry says he's owed. Basically, he's entitled. He's owed out of respect for his ancestors. He has a picture of his grandmother. She lived to be 110 years old. She was a slave, broke her back on the slave fields, and he says it's a matter of justice. He wants the money, even though Larry has done good for himself. He's done well for himself in the United States. But Larry said it's about respecting his ancestors and what they endured and what they suffered. What say you? 617-266-6868. Jake in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Jake, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
Jeff,
Jake.
I have steam coming out of my head right now, and it's not for the reasons you might think. It's not because of the absurd notion of reparations. It's because it's almost 9 o'clock, and you've been given this almost 3 hours to science fiction of what this absurd notion is to give reparations. I love you 99% of the time, but Jeff, today I think you've fallen on the wrong topic for 3 hours. We have much more important things to talk about than this absurd notion of reparations. This is a Hail Mary pass by the.
Jake? Okay, so, so, Jake, no, the reason why we're talking about it, just so that you know, is that, look, Obama's is forcing Biden to make it, they're going to make it a big issue in the campaign. So this issue, whether we want to confront it or not, they're going to make a huge deal about it. And so we're going to have to be ready. And it's an explosive issue. It's a divisive issue. It's a very deeply polarizing issue. I honestly think they're making a massive mistake. It's up to them. If they want to commit political suicide, go ahead. But if this and the sexual mutilation of children, it seems now the Democrats are going to push these two issues to the end. And I believe this is going to give us now the massive opening we need to wipe them out politically. So that's why, Jake, honestly, it's why I'm spending so much time on it. Because this is it now. We've arrived at this issue, And this is the hill now the Democrats want to die on. So I'm saying, let's take them out. 617-266-6868 is the number. Alan in Oklahoma. Thanks for holding, Alan, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure, Alan.
I got a question. Did Abraham Lincoln give the slave, he was going to give the slave the son the land and a mule, correct?
Well, that was the plan. The plan was called 40 acres and a mule. And so they felt that to make up for all the injustices of slavery, that African Americans should get, those who were enslaved, the former slaves, should get 40 acres and a mule. But ultimately, Alan, they didn't get 40 acres and a mule.
So they got shafted.
Yeah, they essentially got shafted. Now, Alan, just 30 seconds, I promise, and I'll give you the whole floor. Okay. The first black senators were Republicans. For about 12 years, they were able to vote in the South. They were able to hold land in the South. They began to do well in the South. And they were Republicans, all of them. And then that was called Reconstruction. And then Reconstruction ended in 1877. And that's when the Democrats and all of these former Southern Confederate states, that's when they imposed Jim Crow segregation. So blacks were free for about over a decade. And then the Democrats, that's when you see the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. And that's when they passed these Jim Crow segregation laws. So that's where we were. But they never got their 40 acres and a mule.
Okay. I'm a conservative. I used to be a Democrat. I got off the plantation field, and I'm a conservative, staunch conservative. But I strongly believe the blacks that can prove they came from slave ancestors, they should get compensated. The reason I said that is a wrong was done, and that's one way to fix it. The Native Indians got compensated. The Japanese American got compensated. I understand about your grandfather and your father, but this happened in Germany and Russia. It didn't happen in the United States. We're talking about here. The Irish came as industrial service. They were not slaves as far as like they were owned, but the blacks were owned. They took the freedom away from them. They took the freedom, the will, the choice, and they were born, generation in generation into slavery, which wasn't right. I hear white folks talking about, well, we didn't own no blacks, I shouldn't pay for it, but we benefit from it. We benefit from what they did. So, my family, I'm first generation born in the United States, but I would pay. It would come from my pocket. Yes, rightfully so, because I'm still benefiting from what they did. So, I don't mind paying. But that's just how I feel. I feel if I do something wrong, I need to pay for it.
Well, you see, Alan, I hear very eloquent. I think you're making a very, very strong case. Alan, but this is where I think this is the flaw in your argument. You said if I did something wrong, I should pay for it. But you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't enslave anybody. You never oppressed anybody. Now, you are right. Native American Indians got, I guess, some sort of compensation. They got put on reservations and they got autonomy, a little bit of political, cultural autonomy, but they never got $3, $4, $5, $6, $7 million checks. That's, you talk to Native American Indian tribal leaders, they're going to want their checks. That's what I mean. It's not going to stop with them. Now, and the other thing is about, you're right, the Japanese got compensated, but, Alan, those were people who actually suffered in the internment camps. So those that were released from the internment camps, they were compensated, but they were the ones who were mistreated. What we're doing now, Alan, is something very dangerous. We want to go back 150 years and compensate something that happened almost 2 centuries ago. Now, you say, well, we all benefit from it. Well, how do you prove that? I mean, seriously, how do you, for example, no, really, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just saying, I'm an immigrant to this country. How did I benefit from slavery? How did you benefit from slavery? And most of the work that the slaves built, frankly, was in the South, and that was all destroyed during the Civil War. I mean, I'm just stating facts. You know, the Union razed the South to the ground. It was a prelude to World War I. It was a bloodbath. And 700,000 Americans, frankly, mostly white Americans, died to end slavery. So that debt has been paid. It's been paid in blood. So how long is this going to continue to go on? Once you open this door, Alan, I mean, think about it. You know, and Alan, I just want you to know one other thing, and then I promise I'll give you all the time in the world. My family's originally from Croatia, okay, former Yugoslavia. But because my grandfather was mistreated and put in a communist concentration camp, and he's of German descent. He was in Croatia, but of German descent. He was able to flee to Germany. In fact, he was expelled from the country, and he fled to Germany. When Croatia was about to enter the European Union, this was like maybe 15 years ago, the Austrian government said all of those Germans who were expelled from Croatia when the communists seized power, their ancestors should be entitled to reparations. Now, that was my father. He was a young boy. And I wrote a column saying, absolutely not. The people of Croatia today should not have to pay my father or me for something that happened 70 years ago. It's not fair to them. They never oppressed my father or my grandfather or me. So for them to pay for something that was done, not in their name, in a different regime, in a different time, in a different era, honestly, I don't think I can, to me, it's the most immoral thing you can do. So, Alan, you had nothing to do with slavery. I had nothing to do with slavery. It was over 150 years ago. Why should Alan, who works very hard for his money, a law-abiding American, why should you have to pay for something you had nothing to do with?
I hear your argument, Jeff, and you make a lot of good points. Honestly, I appreciate it, and those are things I'm going to pound upon once I get off the radio. But I still think there was generation wealth that was robbed from these black slaves. Because imagine if you were a slave, your ancestors were a slave, all of a sudden you're free. And then you hit the road, but where are you going to go? You just came from slavery, no education, you had nothing. But they were going to give you that land and that mule, and that was taken away from you because the president was racist. A large generation wealth was stolen from black folks from this country. I agree with you in a lot of points you just said, but some of it also I kind of sympathize with the black slaves at that time.
Look, Alan, this is where you and I definitely agree on one thing. We agree on actually on many things, but I think we definitely agree on one point. If I could go back in time, in other words, yes, they should have been given 40 acres and a mule. I wish we did, because then we wouldn't be having this debate today. But, you know, that was then. They didn't do it. For many reasons, they didn't do it. Alan, I just want to say one last thing, and then I want to give you the final word. The big culprit in this is the Great Society. Because by the mid-1960s, black Americans were starting now, you talk about generational wealth. Well, now they were starting to build up generational wealth. It took a while. It takes 50, 60 years, you know, one generation, then the other. But they were making 80% of white Americans. And within another decade, they would have caught white Americans. So they were on their way to reaching parity with white Americans. And then, of course, the welfare system was put in, the economic plantation was put in, and the Great Society was put in, and that stopped and, in fact, then regressed retarded, in the true sense of the word, retarded the development that and the growth and the progress that blacks had been making. So my point is, by the mid-1960s, they were on their way to getting all that generational wealth. So now the same party, I just want you to think about this, Alan, the same party that gave us slavery, gave us civil war, gave us Jim Crow, and then we overcome all of that, and then blacks are about to catch up with whites. Then they give us the economic plantation, which holds back blacks again, is now telling us we owe them trillions of dollars in reparations. And honestly, Alan, what do you think is going to happen if you start giving people $3, $5, $7 million checks? A, it's going to make everybody poor. Inflation is going to explode. 5 million is going to be worth 5,000 if you're giving out checks like that. And it's the ultimate handout. You want to talk about a plantation? This is the ultimate plantation. So we're going to be squandering all of that money. And in the end, who's it going to help? Because you're not teaching them how to fish. You're just giving them a lot of fish to eat. But, you know, that old parable, I give you a fish, I fed you for a day. I teach you how to fish, I've taught you how to eat for your life. That's why I think in the end, this is even bad for the blacks or for African Americans who take the reparation money. It's going to destroy them. It's going to destroy them like nothing has ever destroyed them before. You want something, you have to earn it. If you don't earn it, you don't appreciate it.
It make you sound very good, and I like that. Jeff, I love your show. I listen every day. I hate Sunday and Saturdays because you're not on the radio. I love listening to you. I learn something every day.
Oh, thank you, Alan. Alan, I mean, you can have the last word. Go ahead. You can attack me now, Alan.
Oh no, I'm not attacking you. I just wanted to express some sort of sympathy for the black slaves and their descendants. I can understand the argument to a point. We might not have to cut $4, $5, $6 million check, but we can make it more reasonable. Whether it's education, whether it's 100,000, I don't know. There's
job opportunities. No, I hear you. No, help them form businesses. No, you're right. Give them skills. I hear you. No, on that, Alan, you and I are on the same page. Alan, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. No, I got Mike in my ear saying, Alan's saying, I hate Saturdays and Sundays because I can't hear you. And I got Mike in my ear saying, I love Saturdays and Sundays because I don't have to hear you. You see the abuse? I'm telling you, I'm the Rodney Dangerfield of talk radio. I get no respect. See the abuse I got to take on a daily basis? 617-266-6868. Okay, Sue, I have the number, but in small print, Sue in Boston. Why Sue in Boston is in small print, I don't know, and I don't even want to ask. Sue in Boston. Thanks for holding, Sue, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you. Regarding your last two callers, I just want to give them a little history lesson. There was something passed in 1972 by President Nixon called the Equal Opportunity Employment Act, otherwise known as affirmative action. Now, black people have been getting their reparations in spades since then. Now, when I went to college in 1980, the red carpet was rolled out for black people, and they were getting scholarships way back then. And also, let me point this out. My father was in the New Jersey State Police, and back in the 70s, he scored higher on his, I think it was lieutenant's exam. He also had 2 bachelor's and a master's degree at the time, and he was beaten out of his promotion, out of his higher pay, by the black man who didn't have any of those credentials and scored lower. All right? So there were his reparations. And then, because that certain black man was not qualified, and I'm not taking anything away from that man. He was probably younger and it was not his time. My father had to help him in his job. Okay? Now, is this equality? So this equal employment opportunity, as it's called, there's no equality in that. It was straight up racism then, and it's straight up racism now. And to this day, now, let me go backwards a little bit. The affirmative action law, I can see way back when, okay, let it go for one generation. But to keep it going until this day, no. Now it's 3 generations later, and my kids who go to college, I'm applying for financial aid, and I'm looking at all these scholarship funds, and it's all based on race. So it's either sports or race. So where am I left? Where are my kids left? So we have to pay the much higher bills, and also they have less of a chance of getting into the better schools. So they're already getting their reparations. I don't want to hear this garbage about reparations. They are way ahead of us in money, in getting into the better schools. And another thing, Jeff, I don't know why they think that they would have had all this money had they not been slaves, because people who have family that lived in this country back then, white people, they're lucky if they have enough money to bury their dead relatives, their dead grandparents, parents, whatever. Most Americans don't have that kind of money from back in the day. They don't have old money.
Oh,
why did these black people think that?
Oh, Sue, that you nailed. I mean, that's a very, very good. Actually, you made great points, incredible points. But I don't want, as an historian, I don't know why, but that last point really jumps out at me. Most people in the United States, especially in the South, let's just take whites who never owned slaves. Most whites in the South did not own slaves. It was only a small elite that did. They lived in crushing poverty. They had no opportunities, no education. There was no generational wealth with them. And this goes on to this day. Look at Appalachia, or many rural parts of the South. I'm talking white people. So you're right. This idea of, well, hey, if we weren't slaves, we'd have all this generational wealth. I'm like, no, look at most whites. Now, on your other point, you're 1,000% correct. You look at the trillions of dollars that we've spent in the war on poverty, the welfare, the affirmative action, the racial quotas, in schools, in university admissions, in jobs. I think we've paid reparations over and over and over again. And notice, Sue, Obama comes out and says, cut him a $5 million check, but keep affirmative action, keep racial quotas, keep everything. In other words, so we pay all this money and we still got to have this race-based regime? I don't think so. Sue, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Here, let me throw this log on the fire. Is Sue right? Have we already, in essence, over the last 50, 60 years, have we paid reparations? Is affirmative action, racial quotas, the Great Society, have we not already paid reparations? 617-266-6868 is the number. Dave in New Bedford. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. I gotta say, Jeff. Of course we should pay reparations. Make those who are responsible for slavery pay. The Democrat Party. Anyone who's a registered Democrat should pay reparations. They were the party of slavery, KKK, Jim Crow, the modern Democrat plantation in the urban areas. Yeah.
Dave, can you do me a favor? Buddy, can you do me a favor? Can you take your phone off speaker? We can't hear you as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, loud and clear, Dave. Loud and clear. All right, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, where was I going with that? Yeah, then we could put an end to the Democrat Party because they've committed so many evils in this nation, and we would have a lot less problems in society in general.
Dave, by the way, I love that point. I really do. I mean, to me, it's the ultimate, game, set, and match. If Biden and Obama are going to push this hard, I'm like, okay, well, who gave us slavery? You. Who gave us Jim Crow? You. So if anyone's going to be paying reparations, it should be a you. Dave, I want to ask you this. Elizabeth Warren now. Reuters did a big study. They looked at people's genealogy. Elizabeth Warren, one of her ancestors, slaveholder. Maggie Hassan, Senator, New Hampshire, slaveholder, one of her ancestors. Jean Shaheen, ancestor, slaveholder. Barack Obama, the guy who's driving all this, on his mother's side, slaveholder. So should these left-wing politicians, these socialists who are pushing reparations, and they had ancestors, they're descendants of slaveholders, their ancestors owned slaves, should they be made to pay? In other words, Obama's worth over $1 billion. I don't know, let him cough up $500 million for a reparations fund. Let the chief, the fake Indian, let her pony up $5-10 million. Should they be the ones paying for this, Dave?
And that way, I'd just love to see the Democrats get put back in their place where they belong, It's like, stop messing with society, stop screwing around with the general peace and sanguinity of the people, and start serving in the government like you're supposed to, instead of using it to graft and gain advantages and then blame everybody else. That's all they ever do.
Dave, many texters are making the point that you just touched on. This is gonna be trillions of dollars if they get this idea through. Okay, if California is going to do it, and if they can do it nationally, we're talking trillions and trillions of dollars. How much graft do you think? How many kickbacks? We're looking at $10-15 trillion. I look at Obama, I look at Biden, I look at these crooks, and I say, if they've got their hands on $10-15 trillion, I know Hunter's going to get some. I know Obama, Marxist Muchel is going to get some. I think they're going to be stealing a lot of it. The opportunity for corruption and graft is going to be immense. Am I wrong, Dave?
No, you're not. That's exactly why they're doing it. That's why we should only make Democrats pay.
In other words, they'd be stealing their own money then.
Well, yeah, if they paid. Of course they won't. You know that.
Yeah, no, I know. They want you and me to pay. You see how it works? We pay, Dave. They don't pay.
No, they never pay. They just take.
Dave, thank you very much for that call. It's true. We pay and they take and take and take. Maggie and Amesbury, thanks for holding, Maggie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Maggie.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to give, Larry and Allen's of the world a big hug. But the fact is, the government is manipulating people like that. I mean, they're dangling this carrot of reparations, which has, no legal, how can you legally make the argument for reparations? Are we just making promises to people just to get their vote? It's almost cruel. There's no practical way we could make these payments. There's no really legal basis for them. So I feel angry because they're taking advantage of some of these people and dangling this carrot that it's only going to harm them and harm society. It just makes me infuriated when, I feel bad for them because they actually believe that this is the way to go that's so harmful for them.
Well, Maggie, look, you're right. And look, on two counts, you're right. Number one, just debating this, just even trying to force it on our country is going to tear us up. It's going to create hatred, envy, jealousy, frustration, bitterness. It's going to tear racial relations apart. And God forbid they're like really serious about imposing this and they start succeeding, it'll bankrupt us. There's nothing that the Democrats have proposed that would do more to destroy the United States than this. We're talking 10, 15, 20 trillion dollars. I mean, it's over. If Obama really wants to bring America down, this is the way to do it. I mean, Maggie, am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And it scares me that people aren't thinking rationally. They're just, playing on people's emotions. And as you said before, Jeff, and many callers, where does it end? I mean, my ancestors were Irish. They came over here and...
Yeah, well, we know how the Irish were treated when they came. You're dead on. See, that's the thing. It doesn't end. And it's a descent into anarchy and social chaos. The future, then, look at Somalia. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Obama now in a private conversation with Joe Biden. Apparently, the New York Post is reporting. First, told Biden it's over. He needs to, as he put it, quote unquote, hang it up. The cognitive, mental, physical decline is now too obvious. He's hemorrhaging in the polls. Biden is now being urged by Obama to not run in 2024, pass the baton off to Kamala Harris. Biden, however, being bolstered by the Lady Macbeth of the regime, his wife, Dr. Jill Biden, told Obama, no way, no how. He's in it no matter what, to the end. To which then...
About the lunch, President Obama reportedly told President Biden ahead of 2020, quote, "You don't have to do this, Joe. You really don't." Can you say if a similar message was shared today?
I can't, and I don't know what you're referring to.
Regarding whether he should continue to serve in public life.
I don't know what you're referring to, and I don't have any comment on it.
So the media, that's the New York Post, Steve Nelson. They reported on this, and that was White House Deputy Press Secretary Olivia Dalton, basically playing stupid, saying, "I don't know what you're talking about." No, it's Obama's now letting everybody know he's putting maximum pressure on Biden to not run for re-election because he believes they're going to get destroyed. Biden countered, saying he's not leaving no matter what. He's hunkering down. He's digging in. To which he then said, "How do I get out of this?" Obama said, "Your only chance now, ultimately, is to play the race card. You've got to get African-American turnout to historic levels like I had in 2008, 2012. And the way to do that, reparations." Obama now has come out fully embracing reparations, saying it's an idea whose time has come. California is leading the way. And he says now the Democrats nationally must follow. So reparations looks like it will probably be a major, major issue in the 2024 campaign. My question to you, politically, does this hurt or help the Democrats? I think it will destroy them. It's a poison chalice. They drink it at their peril. But that's me. And on the merits, should we pay reparations? Do we owe the descendants of slaves a $5 or $7 million check? Some are saying $5 million. Now others are saying Black Lives Matter, $7.6 million. That's their asking price. 617-266-6868. Lines are blazing. Joe in Wellesley. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Joe?
Oh, not too bad. I'm out here watering my plants. This is the only food I'll have to eat. Jeff, are you still with me?
I'm with you, Joe, and I love your accent, by the way. So but keep going, my friend.
Jeff, can I claim money, like a couple of $100 million, for being drafted? into the U.S. Army when I wasn't a citizen.
Now, Joe, when were you drafted, my friend?
1964.
I by your accent, call me crazy, Joe. Are you from Ireland?
Across the water.
All right.
Scotland.
Oh, you're from Scotland. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my bad. So you're from Scotland, and you were here. I take it as a legal immigrant, probably on a green card, and they drafted you. Is that it? Is that it, Joe?
That is correct.
Well, now I take it they gave you citizenship after that, right, Joe?
No.
Really?
No, but you know why? They demobilized me and sent me back over to the States 6 weeks before the date, which would have made it 3 years. 3 years I would have gotten it, but they sent me over early. Told me, you're all set, go home.
So, Joe, when did you end up getting citizenship?
Oh, about 2 years later.
So, wow. So you were drafted even though you weren't even a citizen of the United States?
Of course. And so were my wife's two brothers, and they were Italian. And they were not citizens.
Wow, I had no idea. Joe, I'm just curious. What do you make of this whole reparations argument? Do you buy it?
No, because I'll tell you why. As you probably know, not maybe a lot of people know this, but you know it. Most of the slaves who were taken out of Africa, first of all, they were not taken as slaves. They had already been made slaves by other African tribes. We all know that. That's what a slave was somebody who was defeated in a battle. And so, being a British colony at the time, they asked them, well, we've got these plantations across the water, meaning, like the Pacific Islands and so on and so forth, and the ones off the USA. And, they said, well, how much do you want for these prisoners? And they bought them, and they shipped them out of Glasgow, Scotland, to the States. That's how it all happened. But they were already slaves to their own African tribes who beat them. I mean, a lot of people haven't a clue about the history of how the black people came over. And, yeah.
So, Joe, it's a brilliant point. So what you're saying is they were already enslaved by African chiefs in Africa.
Of course. The same as the Romans. When the Romans captured people in battles, they became their slaves. Some of them got put in for the, what do you call it?
The Colosseum, right?
The Colosseum, sure. Same thing. And if you won and won and won, then you were given your freedom.
Joe, I'm just curious. Your family, are they from the lowlands or the highlands?
Neither. They were from the north of Italy.
Oh, hold on. What do you mean? I thought you said you were Scottish, Joe.
Yes, my father and his father came over from Italy, bringing the trades of marble and mosaic and tile, bringing it over in the times of Queen Victoria. And then they moved up to Scotland and they opened another business up there. They had them in several different places. They had them in Marseille and in Genoa and all over the place. And, yeah.
Oh, Joe, okay, because I was going to make the point about how, the English were kicking around the Scots for centuries, William Wallace, Robert the Bruce, and I'm thinking, well, if you're, of Scottish descent, ethnic Scottish descent, you probably want reparations from the English. But since your ancestors are Italian, I can make that argument, Joe. But let's say, think about it, right? Couldn't many Scots make that argument if they wanted to? They say, hey, 400 or 500 years ago, you know what you did to us? Pay up.
Of course. Yeah, of course they could. Look at Wallace. They cut him up in about 6 pieces and sent him to different parts of the UK to teach everybody a lesson,
Joe.
Put him up on a steel pole.
No, I know. They put him on a pike. No, I know. Joe, thank you so much for that call. I really, really appreciate it. Great call. I'm happy you've always kept your accent. Charming. I love it. 617-266-6868. So my point is, after a while, everybody screwed everybody. Like, you go back in history long enough, it's like, well, they screwed them. No, then they screwed them. Then they screwed them. Then they screwed them. So I told you, it's a Pandora's box. Once you start, you see, you just select, it's like cherry picking. You're stopping in history and you're saying, okay, at this point, we're going to stop. Now give me my money. Well, no, keep going back. This is what I never understood. If you're really that angry about slavery, go blame the African tribes. Go blame the African chieftains. They're the ones who enslaved you and then sold you. What does this have to do with you and me? We never did anything to anybody in terms of slavery. 617-266-6868. Judy in Vermont. Thanks for holding, Judy, and welcome.
Hello. I just think this whole thing about reparations for the black community has to do with their end goal of trying to do universal basic income and collectivism and communism, which is, obviously the goals of the global leaders that want to take down the U.S. and have a one world government. If they pull on the heartstrings and these reparations go through, the economic disaster that's going to occur and the civil unrest / race riots that will ensue will be devastating. And then other minorities, we all have sufferings in our history, every single one of us. That's why we came to America. That's why we love our freedom. But they'll have some minorities fighting other minorities and people feeling they got slighted, and then the whole country, we're broke anyway. How can we ever do this? And then the only fair thing to do will have universal basic income, and everyone will be happy.
Judy, drop the mic. This is socialism, communism, universal basic income, as you put it, through the back door. 617-266-6868 is the number. John in Framingham. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Oh, thank you for the welcome. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Great. I can hear you perfectly. We got knocked off last week. You asked me, John, are you still there? You asked me about Hunter Biden. Is it evident about the plea deal and all this? And I didn't know the specifics. I never got a chance. We got knocked off the air, and I sent you an email as a follow-up asking, well, how did it sound on your end? So okay. I thought it was originally...
John, to be very candid, John, I get hundreds and hundreds of emails a day, sometimes actually 1,000. So I can't read every one that comes in. John, I'm just curious. You're obviously a very intelligent man. Now the big push, liberals, Democrats, it's going to be reparations. Obama says that's their ticket to hold on to the White House. What say you?
Well, a lot of these words are very subjective in their meanings. The whole concept of a slave, the whole concept of a ticket. The New York Lottery put out something. This could be a ticket out of the ghetto at one point before the billboards were taken down. But again, we don't use the words with the exact same meanings. They're very loose. My feeling on this is that no one should get a handout, like you said. And you've been using top-notch words today, like eloquent and so forth, but there's no free lunch, is what I was taught in the Framingham school system by the physics teacher, Mr. Goucher. There's no free lunch in the real world. When you start giving people something for something they're related to, some of their relatives did in the past, or maybe they have the same skin color, live in the same town or country, and somehow you're taking that almost like you mentioned a parable earlier about the fish, great analogy, and in the same exact vein, if you will, it's almost like original sin. In other words, because you were a descendant of some people that did something that someone's questioning, or someone's bringing up political, in a political sense, for their own gain or career advancement, they are trying to bring equity into the picture and say that those people or groups or a certain
Oh, that's a really good point. John, that's a really good point. This is all part of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. It's critical race theory. And now they're trying to inject it into politics and into social policy. And that's what reparations is. You absolutely nailed it. John, and thank you very much for that call. And look, notice the ultimate question, how can we pay for all this? Now, I just want to quickly play this cut. Here's a Black Lives Matter activist saying we want 7.6 million. This is what they're pushing for now in California. And this is at a San Francisco Supervisory Board meeting. And they're open about it. They go like, look, don't ask how we're going to pay. Don't ask about the math. Just cut the check. Roll cut 7C, Mike.
I think part of the challenge here is for folks not to get bogged into, like, how are we going to pay for this? The question is, like, why we need to do this.
So I'll tell you why we have to ask if we can pay for it, because it'll bankrupt us. And not only bankrupt us, when you're spending trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars and creating multimillionaires across the country overnight, what do you think that's going to do to inflation? We're going to be like Weimar Germany. See, that's the other thing they don't get. They think, yeah, we'll get 5 million, but 5 million will be worth what it is today. No. After you drive up inflation, your 5 million is going to be worth like what $5,000 is today. You're going to need a wheelbarrow just to buy a loaf of bread. So forget the moral aspect. Forget the what it's going to do to culturally, socially, to race relations. Forget all of that. Just from a pure economics point of view, you want Weimar Germany? This is it, baby. As I said earlier, this, if you want to destroy the United States, and clearly Obama does, this is the one idea, the one policy that can do it like this. Like this. If we're insane enough to pass this. John in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, John, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, John.
The gentleman from Oklahoma, Larry, made a very valid point about one thing, and that was generational wealth. And it wouldn't be very difficult to go back and see which families have really benefit from this generational wealth. And as Democrats like, we could put in a death tax to take that wealth away from them and then use that money, maybe not so much to just hand out checks, but to improve educational opportunities and to give very low interest or no interest loans to black businesses to start up, to try to get some equity into this. What are your thoughts?
Well, John, look, I mean, I'm skeptical of all these ideas. I understand they're coming from a very good place. Please don't get me wrong. Look at Black Lives Matter. They raised over $80 billion, almost $100 billion. But they stole all of it. It all got stolen. None of it went back to black neighborhoods. You know, you're talking about, helping build up black businesses. I agree. Black schools, community colleges, all sorts of, there's so many things that could really help African Americans out. And, this is, quote, Black Lives Matter, unquote. I guess black lives don't matter because they stole, you know what 80 billion could do? They stole all of it. They stole all of it. So, no, I think the argument is really, John, we'll go turn around to the Democrats and say, you gave us slavery. You gave us Jim Crow. You gave us the Great Society. You gave us this mess. You want to pay? You pay. And start with Obama. Here, you're worth over $1 billion. Spread the wealth around. You don't need all those mansions. So sell some of your mansions and cut $1 billion check. In other words, reparations? Fine. Pay the reparations. No. He wants us to pay. They don't want to pay. Enough is enough. It's time to say no. Bye-bye.